Hey, this is Matt Johnson with Viral Marketing. Thanks so much for joining us for the latest installment of the special interview series with Chris Angel of ThinkRealEstateTraining.com. Chris, how's it going today?
Good, Matt. How are you?
I'm awesome. Just want to thank everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, we'd love to bring them to Chris and our special guests. So you can actually submit the questions right through the Q&A app on Google+, or if you put them as a comment on the Google+ page, I'm keeping an eye on that. I'm going to bring those questions to the guys as we go along. But let's kind of get into it. We're talking about lead generation and how to not hate your lead generation, which I know a lot of agents struggle with. So, Chris, let's get into it and talk about what people are going to learn and then introduce the special guest for today.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, I think this series, we kind of called this series Finding Your Optimum Selling Style. And I think that's predicated on the fact that everybody's wired differently. But that's not actually how our industry teaches lead generation. We sort of teach like, here's a model and you're going to go generate leads in these very specific ways and use these specific scripts. And what happens is a lot of times we go out and when we try to do those things, they don't feel natural. They don't feel authentic. And so what happens is we have a ton of resistance towards those lead generation activities. And as a result, we kind of bounce through moments or seasons of inspiration. So we're like, oh, I'm all excited and fired up to generate leads now. And then that dies off because I keep doing things that are incongruent with how I'm wired. And then we go to the next seminar, and we get fired up to do it again, and then we stop doing it. And we go through this continual pattern. And one of the biggest complaints I hear in real estate is the roller coaster of income that happens for people. And it's because they never get consistent with their lead generation efforts, and they hate lead generation. That is the majority of agents. So I'm excited because I think today we have a good opportunity to interview Teresa, one of my clients that I think it's turned a corner. Well, I'll let you, Teresa, say that from your perspective, but I think that's the heart of this conversation, is to actually go out into the trenches and find people that are starting to find new, more congruent ways to grow their business. So Teresa, I guess I'll bring that to you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Glad to be
good.
here.
Yeah, thanks. I love your office. Nice and bright.
Thanks.
You've been
I told you before, we've been in this office since November, so it is still, I think, a work in progress. And in fact, there's some landscaping going on outside, so you may see a tractor. Apologies in advance. Hopefully you won't hear it.
That's good. No, that's perfect. Added entertainment.
That's right.
Teresa, we'll just dive in. Like, can you give us some background? Like,
sure.
Before real estate, what did you do before real estate? How long have you been in real estate? Just give us kind of the background.
Sure. So a little bit about me. I was a teacher. I taught high school for 7 years, middle school and high school. And then I took an odd career change. I actually left teaching to take care of my grandma after she had a stroke. And at the time, my husband was a realtor. So since I was home with grandma, I'm kind of perked up have my ears open to the business. And long story short, got involved with a brand new startup in Washington State, and it was a internet-based lead generation opportunity for real estate agents. Wow. But I'm old enough that was really exciting at the time. It's morphed into something that probably no one's excited about at this point. But back then it was cutting edge. And so actually I went to work for that company. I was employee number 2, and it was an awesome opportunity to work with agents all across the country as this company went national, because I got to kind of have a feel for how different parts of the country did things, and teams large, individual agents. It was really, really a big picture on the industry, which I love. Next move was my husband and I were franchise holders for Keller Williams, and we had 2 offices, had a great time. We really focused on training and education for our agents as a way to kind of raise the bar and increase the office, the agent happiness, productivity. Actually moved to Austin after 6-7 years of traveling for Keller Williams events, and worked in corporate for a brief time and realized I really missed doing real estate. I didn't want to work the corporate end. So the challenge was I'm in a city where I literally don't have any referral base. I don't know anybody. So that was a big leap, but I made it.
Right.
And currently I'm an independent broker, and my company is called Keep Austin Weird Homes.
Perfect, which is right there on the screen. That's great.
There you go.
So you've been doing your own brokerage then for how long now?
We opened in late 2012, so we've got 3 years under our belt.
Good.
Right? Yeah.
So
No.
what? So walk.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, no, we've got 2 years under our belt.
Yeah, just a little over 2 years.
Yeah.
No, that's good. So if you looked at how you give us the world of your lead generation prior to you and I having some conversations, I think you turned a corner. Like what did it look like? The good, the bad, the ugly?
Well, when I first started in Austin, I really didn't know anybody other than people that worked at Keller Williams Corporate, which, already had homes for the most part. So my lead generation strategies were absolute cold calls. These were the coldest of cold because some of them I didn't even know where the neighborhood was in Austin. I mean, I was cold.
Right.
I also did open houses. So you can't be in this industry for a very long time and not understand the emphasis placed on cold call prospecting. I have lived it, loved it. I know the scripts. I know the players. I used to lead prospecting, bullpen sessions in my office for the, young bucks. And,
right.
I definitely have the competence at doing that. It just, like, every day it would feel like I was playing dress up, like put my suit on and make my calls and get my headset, not my gaming headset that I borrowed from my kid, but like, my real professional headset.
All right.
So while I was able to get business and, that's important, it was kind of a love-hate relationship or kind of a like-hate relationship or like a tolerate-hate. Maybe it was a tolerate-hate relationship.
Well, what I know about you is I think you're if we looked at disc profiles for a minute, what's your disc profile?
And my D is off the chart. And the only thing that generally makes it not irritating, I'll say that because my husband would probably say it is irritating, but then my I is also extremely high.
Right.
And
so
there's no S, and then C kind of just below the midline.
Right. So, knowing that about you and knowing how you take on your prospecting calls, whether to FSBOs or expireds, when you say cold calls, that's what you were speaking of, right?
Yeah, expireds, and also some circle prospecting, like just listed, just sold.
Sure. I know as a high D that you could take that on and you'd be like, no problem to move through the calls and all that stuff, but there there just seemed to be, you also like things that have a bigger payoff. I think that's fair to say about you.
Yeah.
So the hard part as we started diving into your business, I think the hard part about FSBO and expired circle prospecting calls is that if you don't get that piece of business off that call, then you're on to the next call. There is no residual value to the relationship because all you're looking for is somebody who wants to raise their hand today to do business with you.
Exactly, and it kind of lacks, like I said before, I value a big picture, and so while I also really like checking boxes. I made my 25 calls. I made my 100 calls. Like that feeds something for me. I do like checking things off a list.
Right.
At the end of a day or at the end of however many hours of calling can leave you feeling a little like, what did that really matter?
Right.
And when were you having these conversations with Chris when you're kind of hashing these things out and figuring out maybe another way to go?
I didn't hear the beginning of your question. I'm sorry.
What time frame were you talking with Chris about these issues? How long ago was this?
Chris and I, probably a year and a half ago or so.
Yeah. So you have at this point you have the brokerage. You're on your own.
We were established.
Yeah.
And then kind of Chris and I came back into circles together and started talking about where we were and being able. The initial startup phase is one thing, and then once you kind of reach a little momentum, you can kind of reflect and go, well, what's working? What do I like? What's missing? And that's really.
I would say a year ago, that's where maybe a year ago, maybe even less than that, but where we really started looking at how are you wired and what do you enjoy talking about? Because I've made this statement before, and I think you're a good example of this, but I think lead generation in today's era is about content creation. Content creation is the new lead generation. You can't just make direct sales call to the consumer anymore. And that's where about a year ago we started looking at what could you do for content creation.
Well, and it's funny because I had been doing some blogging before our conversations,
Yeah.
So I was drawn to that, but I didn't even, when you first asked me about lead generation and what I'm wired to do, I didn't even mention the blogging because I've got years,
Yeah.
hopefully not as many years as it looks like, but years in this business, that if someone asks you about prospecting and lead generation, you should say something about calling. Like,
Right.
otherwise you're not even serious.
Yeah. Right.
So even
Judgment,
in
judgment, judgment.
calls with my coach, I had to throw that in, like, and it was
Right.
kind of hard to even acknowledge the numbers, that it wasn't as important as maybe
Right.
the buzz would have it.
Well, and also if we looked at that, I mean, what were you blogging about? What did you used to blog about?
Well, I was blogging the market statistics and, the house I sold, all
Right.
the things that people really want
Right.
to hear about and can only come to
Right.
me for, right?
Right.
I'm the only agent that can interpret the Austin market. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh yeah, evidently, yeah. No, right, but that's the thing, right? It's like, so I mean, and you, I mean, be totally honest. Do you feel like you had a passion for blogging about market statistics and real estate
No, no,
market?
no. No, no.
See, but that's my point, right? Is that's the kind of stuff that I think as an industry we're sort of like, we get so tunnel focused on like how we're supposed to do it that none of it connects with our passion or the artistic side of who we are, and so we just resent any type of outlet of lead generation. So let's start going down the road of how we found the right content for you. Like, how would you describe what we did to find the right content for you?
Well, I'm not sure what you did, because I'm pretty sure you had some intention behind it. How it felt to me,
Yeah.
what I recall is that we had some conversations about like what I did with my time when I wasn't in my real estate office.
Yeah.
And, I was on the PTA board at 3 schools. I was the president of 1 PTA. I was volunteer of the year in the schools. And I mean, I'm sure for you, you were kind of like, oh my God, when is she going to get this? But like, that's where I'm spending all my time. Those are the issues I'm drawn to. I was a teacher. I almost ran for school board this past spring. It's like, hello, maybe you could leverage that into lead generation. I think that's probably what you were thinking, but
I think so. Well, it just occurred to me from as we were talking and exploring what your passions were, where you already spent your time. I think these are the clues you can find in life to point to where you should be creating content. And for you, it was pretty blaringly obvious, because you were like, this is what you put a lot of time into and you were passionate about and had expertise on, right? And in fact, you had a group of people, right? I think one of the things that I teach as I'm working with clients is building a tribe. And a tribe is a group of people connected to one another, connected to a leader, and connected to an idea. And you had already spent all this time with a group of people that were connected to the idea of schools looking different than they do now, which is why there was activism or participation in those circles that you were in. So I think it just became like, how do we take the stuff you're already doing and start to add value to that group of people?
And although that you say it was kind of obvious, it was not obvious to me. So number one, you can't always see it in yourself. Number two, I really kind of resisted that would be lead generation for a while. I mean, I was willing to grant, of course, I'm really into this education and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, people kind of listen to me. But I've got to, like, work.
Right.
I mean, you probably have a tally list of how many phone calls that came up in.
I think one of your recent communications to me was, I feel guilty, like the business has been coming easier and you felt guilty that you haven't had to spend as much time in your office or doing as much lead generation, and things are coming easier and it feels guilty. And I think that's normal for people to start to feel that way, because it's such a different way to start building your business.
Well, I was raised Catholic too, so guilty as charged.
and there you go, you got that too. Right.
But it's true.
What was it that kind of gave you, like, that connected the two? So you kind of figured out what your passion is and what you started blogging about, and then realizing that so far it wasn't connected. What was it that kind of made you realize that you could bridge the gap between that and your business?
Well, I mean, Chris's encouragement and some of the books I've read. I mean, I've read Tribes by Seth Godin. I mean, it's like I know this stuff. I just didn't really see it apply to me. But he just kind of consistently kind of challenged the conventional wisdom, which wasn't that wise in my head, or maybe historical practice. And I did an analysis of the source of my business, which, being a small startup brokerage, I have to say I don't have I don't necessarily have that until I do it. And it was fascinating to see that the transactions that had come from what was my tribe, even though I didn't know to, cultivate it or call it that, but the business that had come from direct referral or directly someone in my, admittedly somewhat limited sphere, they were my higher dollar amount transactions. They were much easier transactions, start to finish. I've literally never had a referral for business from my tribe that I've gone on the appointment and found out it's, some, random person who's just going to take 45 minutes of my time and never call me back. I mean, they've been very productive referrals. And so that was tangible evidence that it had already been happening. And so if I were to devote the time that I spent intermittently doing, BizBo calling,
open houses.
Oh God, well, we'll talk about that. But yeah, I mean, like, how much more effective could you be with these great, not even leads, great business? I mean, people like pick up the phone and it's someone saying, "My wife says you're the one that knows about the schools. We need to buy in this school. Can you help us?"
Right.
425,000. Boom.
Like that.
It's with no interviewing or pandering. It just is so nice.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So tell me about. Let's start talking about how you. I think one of our first steps was to create content, and
Yes.
from creating that content, you started to create an editorial calendar, is what you call it, but basically a schedule of what content you want to create when about schools. Yes. Walk me through some of that.
It's about more than schools. I have created, it's kind of a spreadsheet, and it has every month and then every day of the week, 5 days a week. And I am not committed to doing it every day of the week. So you'll notice that if you look at any of my old blog posts, that the dates don't exactly match up to every day of the week. But the idea of doing the content calendar was that if I'm sitting here going, oh, what to write about, I can pull that out and I don't waste any time thinking about what to write about. It's a framework. So on the first Tuesday of every month, it's focused on one of the high schools. On the first Wednesday of every month, it's focused on a real estate related question. So I do kind of dabble it together. And for the real estate related content, I just take what I basically emailed to a client or something and I make a blog post around it. So that's kind of gimme filler content when I'm not really, maybe I'm not really feeling focused that day, like to go and try to do a full, display on a particular school or something.
Right. So, but the inroad to that content creation and that calendar was, we started talking about schools, and we started talking about a post for this school, and so walk me through some of how this came out of the school thought process.
Yeah, so the idea is that so many times, I mean, here more than the town I came from, the schools really drive a lot of real estate purchase decisions, and the values can differ over $100,000 between the two neighboring high schools. We're not even talking about like way one side of the town, way the other side of the town. It's a huge concern for people. So what I wanted to do was have a series of posts that would focus on each school, get into some of the curriculum, photos of the school, that sort of thing. Because a lot of people, I mean, I think you don't have to be from Austin to realize a lot of people are moving to Austin from other places, and a lot of them even come, they buy a house without seeing anything. So if they can know, oh, this school has an international baccalaureate program, or this school's really known for its band, if they've got a child engaged in those activities, or if those are important to them to have as an option for their child as they get older, it helps make their decision easier.
Right.
So a lot of people, I think, start by Googling schools and then come to our website because they find that content out there and in their real estate decision.
Yeah.
So schools was one important thing. And then another is educational issues that relate to the district, because that's really my my personal passion is, we've got a large urban school district, and we need to make great decisions for all of the kids and protect what is good about it, because you see in a lot of urban cities, the public system is in trouble. And so I have my ear on what's going on with the PTA or the school board meetings. Like, Monday nights I watch the school board meetings on webcast. I'm kind of a geek. So I'm like, well, instead of just watching it and maybe talking to a couple of my friends about it or boring my husband with it, I'll just write up, what was discussed with my commentary at the end. I'm starting to get really good feedback on that. I was kind of worried about putting my commentary on at first, but that's what people are responding to.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. In fact, I didn't know that you were doing that, but I think what's interesting is and I've said that, it validates this point, but I think what people want more than information, because there's a plethora of information, what they want is opinion. They want a narrative.
Want a voice.
They want a narrative. They want a voice to all this information. And because you have a background in education, see, this is different than some other agent going, oh, well, I know that schools are important to have information about because buyers want to know about schools. That's not the same as you have a background in education and a passion for education. So your narrative comes through when you create content versus somebody else that didn't have that passion. They would just be writing more bland information about schools, and that's not what people want.
And that's not going to compel someone to drill down further. But yeah,
that's right.
I agree. I'll own that. Yes,
yeah.
I do.
And it plays to your strength, and I think that's why. If we can start to move to some results out of that, I think I think what's been encouraging for me is as you've been starting to create content, maybe even more so than you did before we sort of set an intention.
Yeah.
You content before, but we started to be intentional about it. I think on this side of you being intentional, you're starting to get more people responding to you, and you're starting to see business come out of that. Can you walk me through some examples?
I think one thing we did about the same time we started getting really intentional with it was I took a Facebook group that I had started almost a year ago, and it was called Southwest Citizens for Public Education. And we had started that group, the couple of us were brainstorming in advance of me potentially running for school board. So it was going to be, for that. And then when I didn't do anything with the group. But there's all these people that were already signed up for something, waiting to hear about some education. So I started using that to disseminate information because there were already people there that had said, I want to know.
Right.
And you can see some of the back and forth on that Facebook page has been really affirming. You encouraged me, because this is one thing that was really hard for me too. When I agreed to get intentional about it, I said, okay, so what about my monthly newsletter that I actually haven't sent out for several months to all the people in my database, right? And you gave me great guidance about, well, why don't you just send an email and say, pretty sure you haven't missed the monthly statistics.
Right.
But here's what I really want to talk about. And I even used the subject line, a confession of sorts. And I did. I said, I confess, I'm bored with my own newsletter. That's why I haven't been sending it. And here's what I really want to talk about is public education and engaging and what makes our community, move forward. And it was, I was very nervous to hit send. I think I sent it to you 3 times to read over.
Right.
And the only reason I hit send was because we said, if you don't hit send before our next call, we're not having the call. I think I might have said it, not you, but it was I needed to hit send. And within a half hour, I had 2 responses that were just oh, this is so refreshing. I love this. And 1 referral. So.
And it wasn't even there wasn't even a call to action in that email. It wasn't like, hey, by the way, who do you know that wants to buy, sell, and invest in real estate? Please hit reply and give me your referrals. It was just you being authentic, transparent about what this conversation has to be if you're going to keep engaging with people. And what was cool, I love that you sent me one of the replies to that, which was, I wish there need to be more people like you in business. Like that here you were taking a stand for a topic in education that mattered to you, and you're being transparent about what didn't work for you, and people seem to like that.
It was like very
What a
affirming.
shock.
Yeah.
What a shock, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I
And I,
struggle with that because I did have the, oh, by the way, if you ever have anyone thinking about buying or something, I did have it in there for one of the
yeah.
drafts, something like that. And you're like, it doesn't really seem in congruence with what you're doing.
Just take that out. We
But
feel
that
this
is something
constant.
that you teach intentionally, Chris. I mean, you take people through that process of figuring out what your content, that bridge, and it doesn't have to be like you said. It doesn't have to be that boring script of
Right.
well. And by the way, do you know anybody that's buying or selling or investing? You can do it in
Right.
other ways and imply that bridge over to real estate, and it still works to generate leads.
You know what's funny, because I always say, like, we are so addicted to the short game that as an industry we are so addicted to, like in every single freaking communication we make, we're always asking for something, and it's overkill because it's not how natural relationships happen, right? We don't, every time we get together our friends, we don't ask for something, we enjoy the conversation, and yet that's not how we actually behave in most of our lead generation efforts. We're always selling or asking for something, right? And that's so 1980s and before. Right?
And that's
Were you
really
gonna
what
say
I
something,
meant when I
Teresa, on
said it felt like when I make those calls, I feel like I'm a little kid playing dress up in some way. Like, it's not who I am. Like, oh, I'm going to put my lead generation suit on. I mean, I don't need a lead generation suit because you know what? When it's a client where you have trust and a common interest and a passion, I can show up to let you in a house wearing shorts and a t-shirt.
Right.
I mean, it's like, it's not about me and this exterior.
That's right. That's right. It's actually, I love that you said it that way, because I think the consumer wants substance.
Yeah.
And we've spent so many decades dressing it up certain ways that they almost would prefer something that feels raw than something that feels dressed up, I think. You know?
That's what we found.
Yeah. So would you say on this side of it, you're finding that are you having to work as hard to win listings and win buyers, or does it seem like the business that comes from your tribe you're not having to interview for?
No, I would say none of the business from the tribe I've had to interview for. Like,
It's just yours.
none. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the power of this, right? Is like people. Now,
Not that I'm pretty competitive. I don't mind a good interview. Don't get me wrong.
Right. Right, but you also prefer a good slam dunk too if you blow your competition away before they even show up to the table.
I do adore efficiency.
Right. Right. That's good. What
You want to hear one of my big ones that's coming on board?
Yeah.
It's a really good story, and and again, I am brand new in a city where I knew nobody. So this will be, for me, maybe it's not big for anybody else, but for me, it's gonna be a $950,000 listing, and I'm pretty darn excited about that.
That's awesome.
It is from someone I met at a PTA event 2 Januaries ago, so almost a year and a half ago.
Wow.
And we just kind of kept in touch. He's at a different school than me entirely, but he was having some questions about a PTA procedural thing. I know, sounds really interesting, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But we talked on the phone
several times.
If you're in the tribe,
I guess it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked several times on the phone about it, and I gave him some suggestions and whatever. And I mean, he's been getting my stupid, monthly newsletter, but I don't, from time to time, send him an email or something. But yeah, right. And he's in a very hot part of town. I mean, it's not like there aren't other realtors approaching him,
right?
But because we had that bond. Yeah. About the schools, and that's like we had real conversations about some in-depth things.
Yeah.
Like, he's just called me out of the blue and said, "We're moving to St. Louis. It's time."
Wow. It reminds me of there was Tim Ferriss wrote, his latest book was The 4-Hour Chef.
Yeah.
And where he talks about his accelerated learning approach. And I think one of the things that stood out to me about that book was he would go ask people that were at the top of the game. He would ask them what they did that got them the results, and he would listen for what they explicitly said, but then he'd also listen for what was implicit in what they were saying. So they didn't necessarily – I like the implicit side, because I'm asking you what's working, and you're giving me some explicit stuff that you're specifically saying, right? But there's some stuff that's implicit in that you're not saying, but that is embedded in what you're doing, right? Which is – you, like this $950,000 listing, like who you're being with that person is somebody who is has a voice and has conviction about something. And when we show up in those environments with our sort of our leadership energy on, or we're being a passionate, convicted person in a particular setting, that is attractive to people. And so, you know, if you reversed yourself and went back to those settings with that guy, and you weren't who you were about your convictions and stuff, he might not have been like, oh, this is the person I need to talk to.
No, of course, I'd just blend in. And I think also, if he would have called me to talk about that PTA issue that he was experiencing, and I would have been on check mark 27 out of 50, would I have spent 45 minutes with him on a PTA issue?
Right. If you had you mean, in other words, if you had had your task-oriented lead generation hat on, like I got to move through people and.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I think so many people are missing the boat right now on how to build relationship and community with people. Because look, this is the whole thing. Out of 100% of the people in Austin that have a heart for schools, what percent of them have real estate in their life plans?
Probably. I mean, everyone's got to live somewhere.
Right. That's my point. Is like everybody's got. So if you could build relationship and credibility in a different setting besides real estate, people would actually be attracted to what you stand for and what your narrative is, which is exactly what you're doing. Like you're living proof of what this is, right? This is where we need to go spend our time and start.
It's a lot of pressure, Chris. It's a lot of pressure.
No, that's the thing. It's like it's less pressure for you.
I know.
Has it not been less pressure for you?
I'm still having some challenges going, okay, should I be doing more? But, you know, I mean, and you know that every day, except for today, because this is special, because I'm on the call with you, but I pick my kids up every day from school, and they're in middle school, and that is not a cute age. But it's the right thing to do when your kids are this age.
Right.
You know, because like right after school, I get that time while I'm driving them to their activity or whatever, and it's like I can't express how much it means that I'm able to do that.
And on the other side of, I think you're connecting some dots here. You're saying like there's a little bit more freedom and space to go pick up your kids from school now, because the way you've been building in your lead generation activities is about talking about things you actually care about, like schools, and it's producing more results in less time because you've created a tribe that are now reaching out to you.
I don't mean to imply there's not still work to do. I mean, but it's also part of not. Has anyone else ever faked that you were with a client at 3 p.m. when you were actually picking your kid up at 3 p.m.?
That's funny. I'm sure nobody has done that.
You know, I'm just like saying, like, it is a priority for me and my business. I don't take appointments at 3 because this is what I do with my kids.
Right.
And it feels so good to just say, this is what I do.
Right. And I think on this side of being transparent, people get that and they respect it. They give you space for that because the relationship you've built with them has been authentic from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It's never been pretense. It's always
Well, and it's not necessarily consuming a lot of your time, Teresa, because you mentioned something earlier that you're kind of spinning off content that you're producing anyway, because this is the stuff that you're already involved in. You already have the Facebook group. You're already involved in these things in terms of investing your time and your mental energy into them already because you're passionate about it. So a couple of extra steps to turn it into some content, and all of a sudden you have this world of content. You didn't have to go and manufacture this stuff out of thin air.
Right. I'm already going to the PTA vertical team meeting. I'm already going to the campus advisory meeting. So it's just doing something with that content and structuring it so it was like for public consumption is much less time consuming than what I would be doing anyway.
Yeah.
One of the very tactical questions we were wrestling with even a month ago, Teresa, was how do we should you create a separate blog or website for this school stuff, or should you take all this school writing and put it on your real estate site? And I think I liked our conclusion, because I think where we ended up was let's just put it on your real estate site. Mm-hmm. So all your school stuff is actually getting put on a blog post for your real estate site, yes?
That's correct. And I am definitely, I love technology. I can definitely enjoy a nice walk over to what other blogging platforms are out there that I could put IDX into and da.
Right.
Or I could just post the blog on the site I have
Right.
and
Yeah.
not make it harder than it has to be. Whoa.
Yeah, right. Whoa. I think sometimes it's about, I think where I like to go to work with people like you or with like clients, right, is reducing the amount of stuff we're managing, strip stuff away and reduce what we have to manage so that, are you rolling your eyes? Nice. Exactly.
Sometimes it feels good to, just do busy things. They
Yeah.
just don't give you the results that you need in your life.
Yeah, and
So,
it's not to say you couldn't have some full-blown, education website on some day, but what's cool in the short term, right, is you're actually, I mean, it's cool because you're actually getting a lot of long-tail SEO keyword phrases in your real estate blog, but have nothing to do with real estate. Like, in terms of search engines finding context for your site,
yeah,
over time, you're going to have a massive, I think, long tail to your site,
absolutely. And I do, I do have keywords
Yeah.
in mind. I mean, I do know enough about SEO that I have that in mind as I'm writing.
Yeah.
But it's no longer, oh my God, am I done with my 300 words yet so I can stick this everywhere?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right, because that content comes naturally for you.
Yeah.
Which I think goes back to sort of the whole title of this thing. I think Matt and I created a title like how to stop hating lead generation.
Mm-hmm.
I think when it comes inside a thing that you already have a passion for, do you find it's easier on this side of?
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't feel like working, and so that's, I guess, I guess I'm still struggling with that a little bit. Because I've been taught you work really hard to get results, and still, when I read the 4-hour work week, I didn't just automatically adopt it, and I was like, whoa.
Right.
So it's that part is still new to realize that,
but it's
working.
Like you mentioned it, Chris. It's like you have to disconnect yourself from that very short-term, the next deal mentality that a lot of people seem to have. It's very difficult. That's probably the hardest work of that mentality, and the whole 4-hour work week is delaying that gratification, putting the content out there, understanding that it's going to take a while for this to pay off potentially.
If you actually want to have I think my perspective is, if you actually want to have a business, you want to be a business owner, you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to embrace the long game. If your entire career or business is built on the short game, you will not sustain or scale that, because it's going, the minute you stop, pushing the Pez dispenser for the next little reward you get, your business crumbles. You've got to have a long-term strategy, and I think that's what we've been building through these coaching.
I mean, that's the goal for sure. Yeah. I mean, I do not want to have to be the hamster on the wheel at all times.
Right. That's right.
I won't do it.
Right.
So Teresa, what are your plans like moving forward? What are you and Chris working together on now? And is there any like next step, next phase, anything like that, plans for the future?
Chris is really we're kind of in a phase where he's continuing to challenge me on how to reach more people. So how to increase, when I do write something about schools, where can it go? And I think what he's, trying to do is go, well, wow, maybe I could have a column in one of the local papers, and I just haven't done that yet. But so I think that's where I'm taking his question is, how do you engage more people, and so that's very thought provoking.
I think one of our next big tasks too is just list building. How do we build your list specifically through like your email list through opt-ins?
Right.
You want to speak to that at all in terms of like what thoughts you're having about content?
Okay, so
you don't have to. You don't have to.
No, well, I'm feeling guilty because I was supposed to have a deliverable done today, and I did not do it on time. But
you're not bad and wrong, though.
What?
You're not bad and wrong. It's okay.
Okay, thanks.
You're making progress.
I'm kind of a perfectionist.
Yes.
I am in the process of designing some evergreen content, so some Why are you laughing? So I'm designing some content that people can opt in, they can request and they can opt in and download it. So in the process of doing that, they'll be raising their hand and saying, yes, I want this content and I like knowing more about education. Put me on your list. So one of the pieces I'm working on is a guide to if you think your kid may have a learning disability and what to look for. What do you actually do on a practical sense to engage the school with that, and what can you expect the school will do from there? School district has a lot of resources, and because special education code is all very federal, it's very unwieldy. And I haven't seen anything that just talks to, like, one of my kids is special needs, and so I haven't seen anything that is kind of the start to finish from a mom's perspective, from a parent's perspective, what actually happens. If you say this to the school, what is your kid's next experience? Because that's really what nobody really cares about, the procedural safeguards through the federal government. When you think your kid has a problem, you just want to know what is going to impact that kid. So
I love that, and I think when it's such a great example of list building, because it's not just school information and the next PTA meeting's at this date and this.
No.
You're actually getting into, as your giveaway item, your resource that you're saying, hey, listen, I have a resource and I can help you. Put your name and email address in here. People will find value in that. That is totally worth my name and my email address. If I have a question about whether my kid has a learning disability or not, I want to know. And because of the way you speak about it, you seem trustworthy and credible to me. Not only because of your language, but because you have that background. You have background as an educator and as a parent with the kids with a learning disability. So
I've been there. Mm-hmm.
Right. So my point is, like, can you picture, like, the for everybody listening to this, the type of people in that list, the amount of respect and value they hold your future emails in is completely different than send out market stats.
Absolutely. And that's why when they pick up the phone and call me, they get all of me. They don't get, just calling to see if you know anyone that's buying or selling. Okay, 27. It's different on my end too.
That's right. A lot of times I'll say, like, if you can find your complaint, if you can find a complaint and solve it, that's one of the places where people will connect with you. And I think your opt-in piece that you're talking about, like, to help parents learn about their kids if they have learning disability or not, is a perfect example of, there's a complaint. Like, I need to know, and I don't know if my kid has a learning disability or what they're supposed to do next, and you're solving that complaint. And when you solve a complaint for people, you get insane loyalty. You get insane loyalty from people when you're that resource that fixes something for them.
Hold on, I gotta write that down.
Okay.
Is that allowed?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But that's the power of this building a tribe and embracing the long game, because you're going out and helping people. In fact, look, gang, you're innovating outside of real estate. It's very hard to innovate inside of the real estate game, because what are you gonna, like? You can't change the forms. Pretty much the IDX is what it is. Like, how you buy a house is what it is. I mean, there's not a lot of room to innovate inside of a real estate game. But you take it outside to tribes and ideas, things that matter outside of real estate, and pretty soon you have lots of room to innovate, which gives you an advantage over your competition way in advance of the point of sale.
Yeah, and people are realizing this very, 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 very slowly. And if you get in on it and start to build your tribe now, you're going to have a huge advantage by the time the other people come to the realization that they have no tribe and decide to build one. You'll have yours already.
That's right. That's right. The rest of the world outside of real estate, the real estate industry, has already moved this direction. The consumer has already moved to wanting to consume content that matters to them. So when you look at content creation, if you actually went and Googled content creation or content marketing, you'd actually see that this concept has been out for several years now, 3 to 5 years. It's been trending, and even more. The consumer's already playing in those industries with content consumption. It's just somehow in real estate we haven't woken up yet. We haven't figured it out.
Too busy making our 100 calls.
And feeling guilty about not making our 100 calls.
That's right, and doing this. I'll say this, one thing that helped me decide on what piece I was going to work on for people to opt in and receive.
Yes.
Is it helped me, and I'm just going to, maybe it'll help someone else, so I'm going to share it. It helped me to think, what was the last couple thing or things that I actually was, dinking around on Facebook or whatever, and I saw something and I was like, oh yeah, I want that. What made me opt in? And then I thought about what content I received, and did it, like, I reflected on, did the content I received match what I thought I was going to get? Did it seem worth it? And then that's kind of what I have in mind as I'm working on this piece, is to match the ones that I felt were worth it. Like the one that spoke to me was one I recently did, was from Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, and I was Googling to try to find a speaker locally to come talk at the middle school program. But while I was on the site looking up a phone number, they had a very specific download titled, what to talk to your middle schooler about drinking. I don't feel like I'm avoiding any conversation, but there was just something about the way it was very specific. I was like, oh, I got to have that.
Yeah, specifics are what I think creates interest and curiosity and demand. Generalities don't speak to anybody.
That so flies in the face of so much real estate training.
Yes,
right.
Very, very much so. I was just about to say that. So, I mean, Teresa, how did you, like, when you first started talking about these things with Chris, I'm personally curious, did it give you that twinge of, I don't want to exclude anybody in my marketing, I don't want to exclude anybody in the new generation. How did you get over that?
Yes, because we're not that, I think we're still definitely in growth mode. We are still a baby company. Austin has huge, people that have been here a long time doing a lot of business. So yeah, we are a small company. So if I were to lose part of my business, that would not be happy. So definitely, I do want to say it felt like a leap of faith, but it's something that I believed intellectually it was the right way to go, but I was still nervous about it. So it definitely helped to, have the, weekly check-in with Chris and touch base and kind of have a conversation where the dialogue was about moving this path forward instead of being nervous about it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, to kind of like reinforce you mentally, no, I'm on the right path, the results will come, and then when you see the results, then it clicks.
And there have been times when we're talking about something and Chris says, oh, do you mean, is that because of the email you sent and she called you after that? And I'm like, oh, I didn't even really put it together.
Just connecting dots of results, you mean?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I think that's part of the, I think one of the, if I had to speak to coaching for a minute, because I think sometimes people think coaching is about giving a whole bunch of new ideas or trying to tickle their ears and give them new stuff. And I think there's a part of coaching where, for me, it's about helping people find, like with Teresa, it was helping you find, connect the dots in your life to the content that you could create that you could engage people. But once you figure that part out, I think it's about giving people enough repetition in the conversation and talking them off the ledge where you're like, you're uncertain and you're like, I don't know, should I send this email? You sent me, like you said, you're like 3 times you were sending me drafts. Like, I don't know, should I send? Should I hit send? And it's just talking people off the ledge and getting them to see how it fits. If you can see the congruency of the strategy, and you, versus if it was like totally out of your comfort zone, you're like, this doesn't make any sense to me at all, and I'm going to take a leap of faith for something that seems weird, then that's different. Yeah. But if you're going to take a leap of faith to something that feels right, and you're like, I think this feels right, but I have so much conditioning from being in the industry that I, right?
So much.
That's a lot of times what coaching is. It's just having enough at-bats with an outside perspective that keeps you focused and keeps you moving down the path that feels right in the face of all the other people who are telling you to do it the way that we've been doing it forever. Anyway.
I agree. Yeah. It is hard to sometimes let go of the conditioning, even though I want to let go of it. It's like anything, it's like a new habit. It takes time to develop it, and and practice it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, in the final minutes that we have left, I mean, other than that, obviously, so we talked a little bit about kind of the accountability and keeping people in it mentally. Teresa, is there anything else that you would suggest if somebody's going through this process alone, or if they're working through this process with Chris or anybody else? Is there anything you would kind of leave them with from your own experience?
I would say, maybe something that hasn't been covered already is to not be afraid if your passion has nothing to do with real estate. Because that's the point isn't that it's, oh, my passion's working with investors, so I'm going to be the duplex specialist and everything's going to be duplexes. That's not quite what we're talking about. So, I mean, if you really are the duplex guy, then I suppose it would be. But for most of it, I kind of went through a phase where what?
Like if you're genuinely passionate about it, you can be the duplex guy.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I remember a phase pretty early when Chris was kind of helping me kind of understand about having a content to focus on, and I kept going, well, this neighborhood or this neighborhood. And he's like, well, not quite what I mean. So
we're so drawn to we're so conditioned to think real estate when we think about our core messaging that it's very hard for us to get outside of that. And the challenge is if we don't get outside of that, we're gonna be stuck in the sandbox that every other realtor is stuck in, and that's who we get to compete against. Our little real estate message versus their little real estate message, and no real connection or tribe or loyalty is ever really created.
And it's so transactional.
Yeah.
Right. And then you do your transaction and you put them on some plan, and every however many months it flags you to call them and go, hey, how's your house? It doesn't feel right.
Right. Yep. Yeah, there's just no substance to that relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why it doesn't feel right, Teresa, and that's why a lot of people struggle with it, is they know that there's just that twinge inside that's like, it's not me, it's not authentic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's wrap it up this way. Teresa, you've got a growing company, growing brokerage. So if somebody wants to send a referral to the Austin area, how do they reach out with you? How do they connect with you? Let's say on Facebook or through email to get that information to you.
I appreciate that. I mean, I do have a Facebook page, so you can Facebook message me there. But if you want to just give me a call, we can talk about it. My website is listed there, I think, and my phone number pops up on the top right corner of the website. So.
Perfect.
So so if this goes audio and it's not visual.
Oh, sure. It's www.keepaustinweirdhomes.com.
.com. Nice.
Yeah. Perfect. And then, Chris, same question to you. So part of the reason that we're doing these is to kind of expose people to the principles and the content of what you teach in your group coaching, and obviously the accountability is a big part, and the encouragement and the support to keep on following through on those principles. But if someone's interested in kind of taking you up on that and going through that same journey that Teresa's gone through, how do they connect with you?
Yeah, I think from a coaching perspective is ultimately where I can help the most. People are either going to want to do one-on-one coaching like I do with Teresa, where it's really focused and customized to them, or a group coaching type of perspective where they're able to get some of these distinctions, but in the context of a group. And I guess right now, before, because the group stuff hasn't really launched, the best place to reach me would be just Chris at thinkrealestatetraining.com. That's probably the easiest way to do that. Maybe in after production of this Google Hangout, I can put up some type of annotation or button for people to click on the actual video that would take them to a place to learn more about group coaching. But for now, I'd say just send your inquiries to Chris at thinkrealestatetraining.com. I think the more that people start to embrace who they are as a human being and what their passions are, and the more they give themselves permission to operate from there, I think the more that we actually get to reinvent this industry. I think what you'll find is there'll be this type of a groundswell. It happens with a handful of people, and then it grows to more, and then it grows to more, and pretty soon, rather than being in the consumer's eyes an industry that might get left behind, I think we start to become an industry that is revered for the service that we provide to groups and tribes of people. And that only starts when you start to play from the long play and who you are and what you really care about in the world.
Well said. Well, I think that our time is drawing to a close. So, Teresa, I just want to thank you very, very much for doing this. This was awesome.
It's
I
my
think you
pleasure.
had a lot of really, really great things to share and a good, probably a good example, I would say, because you've actually done it. This is real content. It's out there. It's working. You're seeing the results that are already coming in, and you have the credibility from your past. You're not dodging prospecting by any means. You've done it, been there,
No,
done that, done it 1,000 times. So it's this is
I
not
can
for
do
the
it right
people that
now.
don't have sales skills. This is this is a higher level long-term play, and then you worked in the prospecting along with that to hit both areas. Yeah.
That's right.
So I think we'll leave it there. We're excited for the next one. I know we're going to keep interviewing some guests, and I'm excited to see what else Chris has to share.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you.